A large number of you who describe yourselves as deeply empathetic, highly sensitive, or orchids also seem to be the ones who draw the most harm from a certain kind of individual. You describe romantic partners who distort facts until you doubt your own recollection. Friends who weaponize your most personal disclosures, the instant conflict arises. Or relatives who provoke you until you snap and then brand you as the unstable one, again and again. You ask the same aching question: why do they behave this way? Why does my pain seem to mean nothing to them? We usually refer to these people as toxic, controlling, or impossible. Yet psychology offers a far more exact clinical framework. These individuals display what scientists refer to as the Dark Tetrad of personality traits. Today, we're going to examine what's really going on inside their minds. When you interact with a manipulative person, you tend to make a critical and risky assumption. You believe they function the same way you do. You think that if you explain your hurt well enough, they will feel it too and change their behavior. But research shows that their internal wiring is fundamentally unlike yours. Psychologists have isolated 4 specific traits that together form this dark personality configuration. The first is narcissism. Narcissism is unusual because it is linked to high social appeal. These individuals are often the most outgoing, engaging, and magnetic presence in any room. However, that charm is only skin deep. Beneath the polished confidence sits a brittle defensive core. If you criticize them or even stop applauding, the facade collapses, and what emerges is a rage that can be deeply frightening. The second trait is Machiavellianism. These are the calculated planners. Where a narcissist reacts impulsively in pursuit of admiration, Machiavellian thinks long-term. They are willing to wait months to carry out a strategy. They don't see you as a human being with boundaries, but as a game piece to be maneuvered. If deceiving you advances their objective, they will do it without hesitation. For them, ethics are merely an obstacle. The third trait is psychopathy, marked by extreme impulsivity and a striking absence of fear or guilt. They lack the internal restraints that prevent most people from harming others. They engage in risks that would paralyze an average person because their amygdala fails to register fear. They act on immediate urges, chasing stimulation, no matter the damage it causes you. The fourth trait, added more recently by researchers, is everyday sadism, and it is the most disturbing of all. It explains behaviors that appear pointless, such as casual cruelty or relentless trolling. For a sadist, your pain is the objective. Observing your distress activates a dopamine release in their brain. They cause harm simply because it feels pleasurable. But the question that always follows is this: are they born this way or shaped into it? One of the most difficult realities for empathetic people to accept is that some of these traits are not reactions to trauma. They are biological in origin. Behavioral genetics and twin research have helped clarify where this darkness begins. Psychopathy, for example, is heavily influenced by genetics. Studies suggest that as much as 80% of it is heritable. These individuals are frequently born with an underactive amygdala. They didn't learn to be fearless, they were designed that way. Machiavellianism, by contrast, is often acquired. It develops as a survival tactic in harsh or unpredictable childhood environments. They learn early that trust is dangerous and manipulation keeps you alive. This blend of inherited predisposition and environmental activation produces a personality structure that is extremely resistant to change. Now, we need to examine how the trap actually works. You may have asked yourself how they can know exactly where it hurts if they lack empathy, and how they can shift from cruelty to charm in an instant. It feels as though they have an internal switch. According to research, they do. This phenomenon is known as empathy dissociation. Empathy isn't a single process. It separates into 2 distinct neural systems. Cognitive empathy is the capacity to intellectually grasp what someone else is feeling. It allows you to read situations and anticipate reactions. Affective empathy, on the other hand, is the ability to genuinely feel those emotions yourself. It's what makes you flinch when you see someone else in pain. Most manipulative individuals possess extremely high cognitive empathy. They are exceptionally skilled at reading you. They understand exactly what drives you, They are more aware of your vulnerabilities than you are. Yet they have a profound deficit in effective empathy. They recognize that you are hurting, but they don't experience it. In fact, brain imaging shows that in people with strong psychopathic traits, the brain's empathy centers are switched off by default. The most unsettling part is that they can consciously turn them on when it suits their needs. During the love bombing phase, they activate the switch. They imitate your feelings. They reflect your inner world. But it's an act. Once you're emotionally attached, they shut the switch down again. They use their insight into your emotions not to bond with you, but to fine-tune their dominance. They are not seeking a partner. They are not seeking a connection. They are searching for a target. And this leads us to a difficult truth. Your involvement with them was not random. Predators are constantly scanning for cues. And because you likely possess strong empathy, high agreeableness, and possibly heightened sensitivity, you stand out clearly on their radar. They seek out individuals who are inclined to forgive. People who instinctively look for goodness in others. People who unconsciously project their own moral compass onto the person harming them. If you are an egoist, someone uneasy with taking up space or clearly voicing your needs, you are the ideal match for their lock. Your reluctance to assert yourself gives them the limitless room they desire to inflate their ego. They begin by testing you. They cross a minor boundary to see whether you will defend it. If you rationalize their behavior, if you take responsibility for their wrongdoing, you pass their screening process. And that's when the snare tightens. They deploy a technique known as intermittent reinforcement. It is considered the most potent addiction mechanism in psychology. If they were abusive all the time, you would walk away. So they aren't. Instead, they offer crumbs. A sharp moment of cruelty followed by a glimpse of that flawless, intoxicating charm. Your nervous system becomes hooked on the uncertainty. You remain in a constant state of alertness, repeatedly pulling the lever in hopes of bringing back the kinder version of them. This forges a trauma bond. It is not love. It is a physiological addiction to the very source of your suffering. Once that bond takes hold, the breakdown begins. This isn't merely deception. It is perspecticide, the systematic destruction of your reality. They deny things you know occurred. They rearrange the architecture of your memory. They insist you're unstable, overly sensitive, or imagining everything. Over time, what neurobiologists describe as structural brain changes begin to occur. Prolonged emotional abuse shrinks the hippocampus, which governs memory and context. At the same time, it enlarges the amygdala, trapping you in a constant fight or flight state. The result is persistent mental fog and anxiety. You become neurologically impaired from thinking clearly enough to orchestrate an exit. After absorbing all of this, you may notice an unexpected flicker of envy. You might catch yourself thinking, I wish I could be that detached. I wish I could shut off my emotions and just win. That thought is understandable, because modern culture often glorifies these traits. We admire their fearless dominance in corporate spaces. We watch how effortlessly they maneuver social dynamics without anxiety. It appears almost like a superpower. It seems like a shortcut through life. But you must recognize the hidden cost of that armor. If you see life as a zero-sum contest, then yes, they appear to be winning. But if you see life as a lived human experience, they are profoundly impaired. Due to their neurological makeup, they are trapped on what psychologists call a hedonic treadmill. They must pursue ever-increasing levels of stimulation, power, dominance, conquest, danger. They accelerate endlessly just to feel something at all. Yet they are biologically barred from accessing the other end of the emotional spectrum. They cannot experience the quiet, warm, oxytocin-based contentment you feel during genuine trust or a peaceful sunset. They are chemically incapable of serenity. They exist in an emotional wasteland. Every relationship in their life is transactional. They never experience what it truly means to be loved. Because love requires being known, and they can never allow that vulnerability. There is a well-known metaphor in psychology that captures this perfectly. They know the lyrics, but not the melody. So do not envy the machine. It moves quickly, but it is hollow inside. So what should you do with this understanding? I've laid this out in blunt detail for a reason. You've been trying to solve this with kindness, patience, and communication, but software cannot repair faulty hardware. You are seeking connection. They are seeking dominance. You are projecting your own empathic nature onto someone who lacks the neurological capacity to receive it. Grasping this reality is the first step toward breaking the spell. When you observe them now, change your perspective. Do not look at them with anger. Anger still binds you. Instead, observe them with clinical distance. When they explode, recognize the narcissistic wound. When they deceive, identify the Machiavellian calculation. When they harm you while smiling, see the sadistic dopamine reward. Understand that their actions say nothing about your value. They are simply behaving as a machine designed this way behaves. You were not chosen because you are weak, but because you are a high-yield source. You possess the light they do not, but that light is yours to keep. I'll see you in the next one.